Good afternoon. Xavier Becerra, Chairman of the House Democratic Caucus, at least of the 113th. By next week, we should hold our leadership elections, and we will have the official slate of leadership elected by next week. But for now, we just finished a meeting of the Democratic members of the House, both those of us who are here as part of the 113th Congress to conclude the work of the 113th during this lame duck session. And also, we had the opportunity to be joined by our incoming members from throughout the country who will join the Democratic Caucus and discuss moving forward as the 114th Congress for the next 2 years. And so we're very pleased to have several of our new colleagues join us this afternoon at this press conference. I'm also joined, of course, by the Vice Chair of the House Democratic Caucus, Joe Crowley from New York. And briefly, because we want to get to our incoming members, I simply want to say this. Once again, if you are joining the Democratic Caucus, you are joining the most diverse group of elected representatives in any body in the world. 2/3 of the incoming Democrats to the House of Representatives are women, among them many people of color, and they come from as diverse a background as you can imagine. So we're very proud of all the incoming members of the House Democratic Caucus, and we're looking forward to welcoming all of them into the caucus as we proceed forward in the 114th Congress. We still have work to do in the 113th. We believe, as the President said, that the people of this country expect us to get done the work of the 113th in these last 2 months before we end the year, and there is quite a bit to do. We need to make sure we get a budget in place for the country so we don't have this shutdown scenario again, where you lose billions of dollars of economic capability and hundreds of thousands of Americans can't go to work. And so I think a lot of us believe that over the next month, we should be able to wrap up the work of getting a budget for the fiscal year 2014-2015 in the books for the Congress. We're also hoping that in this Congress, we're able to see the Senate move through with a confirmation of any number of very important positions, whether it might be the Attorney General position, or don't forget, we still don't have a Surgeon General who's been confirmed through the Senate at a time when Ebola has been such a big concern for so many, including politicians who actually, in some cases, ran campaigns on the issue of Ebola. We haven't seen the Senate yet have an opportunity to confirm the Surgeon General for this country. And so there are any number of very important measures and nominations that must work their way before we end the year's activity for the 113th. We believe that if we heard the public right in this November election, that we will stick to trying to help as much as possible all those families that have survived the difficult times as a result of the Wall Street crash, and we'll focus most importantly on the middle class. We can build on the more than 10.5 million jobs created over the last 54 months. We can hope to continue that progression of more than 200,000 jobs created per month for the last 9 months. We can continue to see more Americans have the health security that many of us here in this room take for granted. We learned just recently that we have the highest rate of high school graduation in our country ever. And we saw in this election that 5 states, 4 of them red, the people in those states said we should give Americans who work for minimum wage a raise. And so the American people have spoken to us. And if we're listening, it's all about helping the middle class and those who work very hard make it. And if you do that, then everything else will fall in its place. And so we're ready to do that. We're pleased to welcome our colleagues who are here to do that with us. Let me introduce them quickly, but they will speak in order after the Vice Chairman. We are joined by Alma, who is actually now a fully sworn-in member of Congress from the 12th District in North Carolina. We're joined by Congressman-Elect Pete Aguilar from the 31st District of California, Congressman-Elect Brad Ashford from the 2nd District in Nebraska, and Congressman Ted Lieu from the 33rd Congressman-elect Ted Lieu from the 33rd District from the state of California as well. But with that, let me yield now to the Vice Chair, from New York, Joe Crowley.
Let me thank the chairman for his service to the 113th Congress as well, and to the caucus. Has done a great job in terms of steering our caucus through some very, very difficult times. And those difficult times may exist for some time to come as well. We look forward to the 114th Congress, and I personally look forward to working with Chairman Xavier Becerra in the 114th Congress. I also welcome this wonderful and diverse incoming freshman class to our Democratic caucus, something that we've been known for before, but are actually right now just reinforcing with this incoming freshman class. And before I turn over to them, I think, as many of you have heard me say before, with all the natural calamities that happen around the world and happen here in the United States, to some of the more man-made calamities like war itself, and what we've seen happen with Crimea, Ukraine, what's happening in the Middle East, all the uncertainty that exists. Adding to that another natural calamity in terms of Ebola and the uncertainty that that has created for the American people. The American people are looking for more stability coming out of Washington, D.C., something that they haven't had, quite frankly, over the past 2 years. We've seen again and again the creation of man-made instability, like shutting down our government, like threatening not to pay our national debt. We hope that those days are behind us, that we can pass a CR, a clean CR, before we leave the 113th Congress, that we can have tax extenders that make sense for the small business community and entrepreneurs of our country, that we can pass terrorism risk insurance, also known as TRIA, something that's very not only important to my city, but to our entire country in terms of the business community and being able to conduct business. Those are ways in which I think our Republican colleagues can demonstrate that they're here to work on behalf of the American people and not just their political self-interests. And so I look forward to work in a bipartisan spirit to make those things happen, and look forward, as I said before, to this incredible incoming freshman class. And I have the distinction of having the opportunity to introduce to you first the most senior of the incoming freshman class, because you all know that seniority means just about everything here. Alma Adams from North Carolina's Fighting 12th District. Alma, the microphone is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Mr. Chair, thank you as well. And I join with all of my colleagues and certainly thanking them and looking forward to not only working with them, but the entire Democratic caucus and the Republicans as well. I come from North Carolina. We've had we've made national news there, but I'm just happy to be here finally to represent the citizens of the 12th District who've had no representation now for 10 months. That's almost a year. That's as close to a year as you can get. And so it stopped on yesterday after I was sworn in. So I'm happy to be here to get to work for them, to work with this 113th Congress and be sworn in again to the 114th Congress. So that's kind of unique for me. It's been a double all the way. I had 2 primaries, I had 2 general elections, and I'm going to be sworn in a second time. So it's been a wonderful experience for me to also be the 100th woman in this 113th Congress. And with that comes a lot of responsibility, representing and advocating not only for women and children and families, for working families, for workers, and for middle-class families. I'm an educator by training, taught 40 years and served for 30 in public office. So I'm here to work. I have the experience to do that, and I'm looking forward to making a difference, not only for the 12th District, but for the citizens of the United States of America. It's good to be here. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And I would like to introduce now my colleague from California's 31st District, Congressman-Elect Pete Aguilar.
Thank you so much, Congressmember. As the Vice Chairman said, we're all a little envious of her position, starting off with seniority. It's my honor to be here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Chairman Becerra, and Vice Chairman Crowley for the opportunity to join you. My name is Pete Aguilar. Currently the mayor of the city of Redlands in California and Congressmember-Elect for California's 31st District. During this campaign, we talked about a lot of things. Chief among them was a middle class initiative, which was a return to discussing issues that are so important to the middle class of inland Southern California, creating jobs, supporting investments in education, making sure that we honor the commitment to our veterans and our seniors. Those are going to be the focuses of me and my colleagues in this caucus. Under great leadership, we are already talking about those issues that affect our communities. I want to thank them for the opportunity, and I look forward to this orientation process where we continue to learn and grow and get ready to deliver for our constituents come January. So we will be getting ready to deliver and to work together on both sides of the aisle. As a local mayor, I have a track record of working together to accomplish things, and I look forward to continuing those efforts. It's my pleasure to introduce another one of my colleagues within the 114th Congress, Congressmember-elect from Nebraska, Brad Ashford.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair and Vice Chair, and Congresswoman Adams for being the 100th woman. I heard on NPR about that a few days ago. I'm very proud to be able to meet you. I've never been to a caucus meeting. I've been in the Nebraska unicameral legislature for 16 years. We don't have caucuses, and we don't have parties. And so it's this was interesting. This was a whole different deal. But I'm convinced. I also, when I was running for office, I said, I'm going to find, first thing I'm going to do is find 25 friends when I'm here. And so I've gone over that. I've gotten 25 plus Democrats and Republicans. I've never been so impressed by a group of individuals in my life. So much competence, so much enthusiasm, and hopefully, if I can just a little bit add the Nebraska tradition of nonpartisan problem solving like we have in Nebraska, hopefully we can do that. So thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Chair and Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you. All right. Congressman-elect Ted Lieu from... Yes. Yes. We can go. We can go now. We're finished. Congressman-elect Ted Lieu from California.
I'm Ted Lieu, and I am thrilled to be here. And let me also thank Chairman Becerra and Vice Chair Crowley for the incredible job that you have done. I've been here less than 24 hours, and someone asked me what the difference was between here and Southern California. I said there are no coat checks in Southern California. But I'm very excited to be here. The Democratic Caucus is amazingly diverse, and the freshman class is a reflection of that diversity. And we also are very proud that nearly a quarter of that class are veterans. I myself served on active duty in the Air Force. I am still in the reserves. And I look forward to working with my colleagues across the aisle. And it's clear to me that the voters want us to work together, and I believe we can get agreement on areas such as transportation and infrastructure funding, and on protecting the privacy of Americans from unreasonable surveillance. But there are also going to be areas where we will not agree, and on those areas, we will fight to protect our core values. We are going to protect a woman's right to choose. We're going to protect Social Security and Medicare, and we're going to fight for the middle class. And on those issues where we can agree that help the middle class, we will agree and cooperate. On those issues that hurt the middle class, we will fight to oppose it. I look forward to working with everyone to make our country stronger and safer, and just thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Ted, thank you very much. And again, you can understand why we are very proud of the incoming members of the Democratic Caucus. As I said, 2/3 are women or minority, and it continues the tradition in the Democratic Caucus of continuing to elect individuals who represent what is America today, and we're very, very proud of that. With that, we will take any questions that there might be. Yes.
Becerra, there's a report in the New York Times, previously Fox News, that the president would likely act on some immigration reform executive actions in the coming week even. Wondering if you had heard or gotten a heads up about any of this, or had a chance to read these reports, and if I could get your reaction to that.
I've had a chance to read the same reports, but I know nothing about their veracity. I do know that the president was very clear months ago, and he was very clear last week in a lunch with the House and Senate Democratic and Republican leadership that he was going to take action since Congress had failed to do anything to fix a broken immigration system, that he was going to try to do what he could to make the laws, immigration laws, work as well and efficiently and intelligently as possible. So my sense is that he will act, and he is committed to act before the end of the year, but more than that, I really don't know.
You just read the reports at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, certainly he did not say in our luncheon when precisely he would act. He did say by the end of the year. Interesting, all the questions about what the president might do to make the broken immigration system work better were posed by Republicans. All the questions were posed by Republicans, and so the president was responding to their inquiries. I know that he was hoping we'd have more time during the lunch to discuss the economy, jobs, some of the pressing issues like Ebola and Syria and Iraq. But again, in response to questions, he made it very clear that he thought about this quite a bit and was hoping, looking forward to seeing Congress act. But short of Congress acting, given that for 6 years he's been president and Congress has not acted, he was going to try to see what he could do to make the broken immigration system work better where he could under the law.
We know what the Republican position generally is on immigration reform, especially via executive order here. But you know, we had several Republicans today. Hal Rogers, the chair of the Appropriations Committee, saying, you know, you're really, you know, his word was there could be an explosion if they did that before the CR or omnibus is passed. Is there a concern here that we could be going back down that road that we did last fall if the president moves this ahead of time, and that really complicates the CR?
And let me make sure my colleagues all have an opportunity if they wish to say anything on this. I would simply say this. Today, tomorrow, next week, we could dispose of the need for the president to take any type of executive action on immigration if the House of Representatives would just unstick its gears and let us vote in the House the way we're supposed to on improving our laws. And for more than a year and a half, about a year and a half, the House has had sitting in its chamber a bill that was a bipartisan bill passed by 68 votes that would fix the broken immigration system. My sense is that the president would like to see the House Republican leadership act, whether it's on the Senate bill or anything else, but to see us do something. Short of that, I think the president is prepared to try to do what he can using his executive authority to prioritize how we go out there and make a broken immigration system with broken laws work as best possible. But again, it's hard to understand why any member in Congress would complain to the president about trying to make things work better when it's in the full purview of those same members to make the law work right by making the changes necessary. So we can act and we can dispose of the need of the president to do anything.
But speaking in the appropriations realm, if it comes to that, however, though, I mean, wouldn't this be different where they say, well, wait a minute, you know, the president, you know, took this action and created this problem, and then, you know, maybe in the court of public opinion, you know, it's different than the government standoff last fall.
So let me let others respond. I will simply say this. To impose ultimatums at a time when I think the president has said, let's work together, I think would be a bad way to start a new session of Congress and continue the lame duck session. The president said, if Congress acts, I'll stand down. I won't need to act. But short of Congress acting, and in 6 years Congress hasn't acted, Republicans have blocked votes on immigration, he's prepared to try to do what he can, as he did 2 years ago in an action that I think most Americans would look at and say made a lot of sense in deferring deportation for all these young Americans who today are graduating from high school and college and trying to serve in our military and all the rest. So my sense is that all we have to do is see Congress finally do its job and act, and we won't have to worry about the president trying to act through his executive powers. But to start with ultimatums, if you don't do this our way, we won't let you do anything else. That to me would be a bad sign. Let me ask any other colleague to respond if they have anything to add.
I think I'd only add to that is that, as I mentioned before, once again, talking about threatening to shut down the government because they don't get their way or because the president isn't trying to improve the way in which the laws are carried out, I think is childlike, quite frankly. And we need to stop creating more uncertainty. That is not going to help create less uncertainty. It's going to create more uncertainty. And that's what we need to end here. This is no secret. The president talked about executive order for quite some time. We know that this has been coming down the path. It's also not the first time that a president has used executive order to carry out major events in the history of the United States, quite frankly. And to add to that, if and when, and I believe the president will carry through with issuing an executive order on immigration, it still will not address every issue that needs to be addressed. And the Congress still needs to come back here and fix what is a broken immigration system. That doesn't change. That still needs to be addressed. It's about time that the Republican Congress, in both the House and in the Senate now, when they take charge, the responsibility will be squarely upon them to act on this issue.
Pivoting to Keystone vote coming up tomorrow, what's your position on that right now?
We're going to have an opportunity to see the rule. The bill was sprung on us. This is not the way you typically handle legislative policy, where all of a sudden a bill comes before you for consideration and debate. It is a closed rule, which is another sign that we're not having full transparency and democratic action on the floor of the House, where amendments won't be permitted, and so members won't have an opportunity to fully express themselves on behalf of their constituents, to try to make changes to a bill that we just barely saw, and to try to improve it or perfect it. So the process is flawed to begin with, but this is an important issue which has been on the minds of some members for quite some time. In my particular case, my biggest concern is this. Someone wants to make money by extracting petroleum from shale in Canada, pipe it through the U.S. to get to our ports on the Gulf, to then have it exported to who knows which country or what place to sell at probably a pretty good profit. There's no guarantee that an American will benefit one drop from the oil that will be transported through our turf by that company in Canada that's getting ready to make money by exporting that oil out of our ports in the Gulf. And so what's in it for Americans? Especially since if there's some kind of catastrophe or leak of the oil, it's going to happen on our turf. And my understanding is this proposal that's before us would exclude the company that's shipping this oil through this pipeline from any liability should there be a spill, which doesn't make sense. So we get the ill effects of a spill, we get the contamination, we have the cleanup, and the company that's sending this oil through our land is getting all the profits. That would concern me greatly if Americans aren't going to benefit from a pipeline that's going all the way across our country, north to south, so that some company in Canada can make profits by selling oil to people outside of the U.S. I have concerns. I'd love to have an opportunity to debate and amend that, but this bill and this process that has been set up by the Republicans in the House will not permit that. So I have real concerns about moving forward with the legislation as it is. Yes, sir.
I arrived late, so apologies if this has already been dealt with a little bit, but given the results of Tuesday's election, give us some idea of the color or the tenor of the meeting about sending basically the same leadership team back onto the field for 2016.
And this is where I think it'd be nice to hear from some of the newer members as well. I've learned after 22 years that an election's an election. And some of our colleagues, R's and D's, learned that you should not take anything for granted in any election, whether in your district or otherwise. An election for leadership in the Democratic caucus or the Republican caucus is no different. You still have to come out with the votes. I don't believe anyone in our Democratic caucus will be elected to serve as a leader of our caucus unless he or she deserves that opportunity to lead. And so we're going to have an opportunity to have a discussion and debate about who should be our leadership team. And I fully respect and will abide by the wishes of our colleagues in the Democratic Caucus on how to move forward on an agenda that will work for all Americans. But again, I've been through enough elections to know that at the end of the day, it's the votes that count, not what you say or do. It's the votes that count, and we'll find out pretty soon who members in the Democratic Caucus vote for to be their leadership. And if it's a lot of the folks that you've seen before, it's because they've earned an opportunity to lead again.
If I'll just add to that, as a member of the present leadership, as is the chairman, and this may be for the new members as well, something that they'll experience is the collective wisdom of the Democratic Caucus. And that's what I have faith in and continue to have faith in. And I know that it will serve us all well as a caucus. As long as you agree with us.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Mr. Vice Chairman. I think what some of the new members are looking for is leadership that is responsive to our members and shares our values. Chief among them, in an investment and a commitment to the middle class. Those are things that I hear being discussed in our community and in that caucus room. So that's what I'm looking for within leadership and within the discussions that we'll be having in the future, or to make sure that our leadership will reflect the values of the Democratic Caucus and reflect the values of my community, which is important to grow in the middle class, to create jobs, to invest in education. Those are things that I want to see out of our caucus and out of leadership.
I might do if I could, Mr. Vice Chair. I would just comment a little bit on the issue of the pipeline. In the Nebraska unicameral, we spent a considerable amount of time debating and discussing where that pipeline should go through our state. And as most of you know, the Ogallala Aquifer, which is the largest deposit of underground water in the world, is located under Nebraska and down through Oklahoma. And there is a great deal of concern in our state that that aquifer be protected, and it should be a concern of the entire nation. My concern would be, as I've said throughout our campaign, is that when there is a decision made, and we've decided in Nebraska generally that if the pipeline is approved, that it should be approved pursuant to the rules and regulations that we in Nebraska have designed for that particular project. So as of now, in Nebraska, we have not finally determined the process for approving the pipeline. That decision is now up to the Nebraska Supreme Court. I expect there will be a decision soon. I think there's some concern amongst my colleagues in the legislature and Nebraskans generally that we respect the process in Nebraska, which I think will be finalized fairly soon. But that would be a concern that I would have as a representative of the state of Nebraska.
Let me close this and invite you to speak to any of our members as we conclude this press. No, fine. No, not a problem. But please feel free to discuss anything and ask any questions you like of our colleagues as we conclude this conference. And I want to thank all those who participated, and certainly I want to thank all our colleagues for not only getting elected and getting ready to do great work, but for participating in this press conference today. With that, we will conclude. Thank you all.